Intercepts from a graph. Intercepts from a graph. So let's start here with we have a graph of a linear equation shown as a red line, and we can see an x-axis and a y-axis. So intercepts are like where it intersects or crosses. So we're looking for where does this red line cross the x-axis and where does this red line cross the y-axis. So the x-intercept of a linear equation is the x-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. So our red line crosses the x right here, and that would be the x-intercept. The y-intercept of a linear equation is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So I think this is a great little graph to draw. It doesn't take much time. And you just can draw and label where does your line cross the x, that's called the x-intercept, and where does your line cross the y-axis, and that is called the y-intercept. So for example, let's say we're given a graph of this pink line, and we're asked to identify intercepts. So what's the x-intercept? Well, if I look along the x-axis, I'm looking for the point where along this x does my line cross the x-axis. Well, right here is the point where the pink line crosses the x-axis. So that is my x-intercept. Then I can just look for the ordered pair of that. That's 2, if I start at the origin, 2 to the right and up or down 0. 2, 0, or just an x of 2 is my x-axis. And where does my line cross the y? What is the y-intercept? Well, if I look up and down on the y, if I'm looking down, 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 and then when I finally get to here, that's where my pink line crosses the y-axis. That's my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is at 1, or the ordered pair is 0, 1. 0 meaning I go left or right 0, and I go up 1. So I have a y-intercept at positive 1, or 0, 1. And I have an x-intercept at 2, 0. All right, let's look at a new example. Let's say I have this line. I went really fast. So what is the x-intercept? Well, if I look along the x, where am I crossing the x? I'm crossing the x right here at 2, 0. And where does my line cross the y? Well, if I look up and down the y, up and down the y, up and down, it crosses right here at 0 left or right and up 1. So at 1 or 0, 1 is my y-intercept. So I'm just finding the places where my line crosses the x-axis. Where does it cross the y-axis? New line. And we're looking for intercepts. So we're going to look along this pink line and see where does this pink line cross the x, where does this pink line cross the y. And we'll start with the x-intercept. Well, along the x, I see it crosses here. Well, what ordered pair is that? I go left 1, 2, 3, 4 places, so negative 4, up or down 0, so I have negative 4, 0, or just an x-intercept at negative 4. What's the y-intercept? Well, if I look up and down the y, it crosses right here on the y. I go 0 left or right. I go down 1, 2. So at negative 2, or the ordered pair 0, negative 2, is the y-intercept. All right, you guys try this on your own. Pause the video here. Find the x-intercept, find the y-intercept, write them as an ordered pair. All right, welcome back. So if I'm looking for the x-intercept, look, where does this line cross the x? It crosses here. What ordered pair is that? Well, if I start at the origin, I go right 1, 2, 3, 4 places and up or down 0. So at 4, 0, or an x-intercept of 4. And where does my line cross the y? When I look down the y, it's right here. So starting from the origin, that's 0 left or right, up 1, 2, 3. So I'm at the ordered pair 0, 3. So hopefully you found both of those answers, an x-intercept of 4 and a y-intercept of 3, and got the ordered pairs 4, 0 and 0, 3. All right, let's look at a new example. Oh, we got this pink line, and it's just going straight up and down. All right, so what is the x-intercept? Looking along the x, I look like I'm crossing right here. So if I start from the origin, 1, 2 to the right, so at 2, 0, or an x-intercept of 2, then if I'm looking for the y-intercept, if I look up and down, up and down, up and down that y, I do not see it crossing anywhere. It looks parallel to the y. It's never going to cross. So there is no y-intercept. And this is a special kind of line called a vertical line. And a vertical line doesn't have a y-intercept. It just doesn't cross the y. It goes on forever and ever in 2 directions, but never crosses the y. It has an x-intercept, but no y-intercept. And just because we're talking about vertical lines, every vertical line does not have a slope. It's undefined or no slope. All right, you guys try this one. See if you can identify the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Pause the video, come back, and we'll see how you did. All right, welcome back, everybody. So we are looking first for the y-intercept on this one. Well, if I look up and down the y, this pink line does cross the y. It crosses here. So what ordered pair is that? Well, if I start the origin, I go 0 left or right. I go down 1, 2, 3. So at 0, -3, I have my y-intercept. And what is the x-intercept? Well, if I look up and down the x, it is not crossing the x. There is nowhere that pink line is going to go on forever in 2 directions and never cross the x. That is a horizontal line, and it does not have an x-intercept. And while we're talking about horizontal lines, every horizontal line has a slope of 0. So that's great to know, great to memorize that every horizontal line has a slope of 0. And we saw those weird exceptions where we can find an x-intercept and y-intercept of almost everything, except for horizontal and vertical lines will only have one of those 2 intercepts. And I hope that gets you guys going on, looking at a graph, identifying x-intercepts, identifying y-intercepts. Have a great day. OUT spells out.